because everything is energy, when we're in the energy of trusting and surrendering, that puts us in a higher vibration. And that higher vibration draws in more higher vibrational things because we're in that state of receiving, and whatever you embody, that's what you're attracting, right? And this took me a long time for my brain to get around it, but the energetics behind it, it's like the more you force things to work, the more we chase after money, because I've done it for a long time. I was chasing after things. When you're in the energy of chasing that thing, you're also pushing it away. It's running away from you because you're chasing it. But when you pull back, when you're in that state of being still, receiving, things come to you because you're not pushing it away by chasing.
We're going to pay her for this.
Bro, that was exactly what we needed to hear. That because it made so much sense, too, when you think of it on a vibrational energy. Because I kept saying, I can't let go and I can't trust because I know that I need to work harder and harder and harder. But that may even kind of sound true to an ego if you wrote it on paper. But from a vibrational standpoint, it doesn't make any sense at all because then you're in lack and scarcity and it's forced. Instead of like what you said, that's how you raise your vibration, is trust and chill.
Yeah, and because we've used that like grinding mentality before to like get our success, it's kind of like ingrained as like for me, it feels like a default pattern. Like when I get stressed, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna work harder and do more, and that's gonna change, right? Instead of like, what my good friend says, instead of like grinding, flowing. That difference between forcing and just allowing.
Damn.
Yeah.
And she has the nerve, the unmitigated gall, the fucking nerve to be like, it took me so long to figure this out.
20 years old. Took
Fuck,
a long time.
I got fucking CDs older than her. And she says it took a long time. That was so brilliant. I really hope the audience gets as much out of that as I probably did.
No,
that was genius. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to The Bridge Podcast. I'm Sean Nixon.
And I'm Jonathan Matthews.
And we are honored and privileged to have our good friend Maggie Dong from Mind Muscle Enlightenment Podcast and internet Instagram friends with us today. How are you, Maggie?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
What's going on? Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, just a background information, who you are and how you've gotten here today.
Absolutely. So my name is Maggie, and I am the host of the Mind Muscle Enlightenment podcast. I am also a consciousness mentor and energy healer, but those are just the things that I do, not really who I am.
That's awesome. When did you start the show? That's what I was going to ask you before that I wanted to stay on camera, is when did you start your podcast?
I started a little over a year ago, I would say. I think back in May 2020.
Okay, perfect. So that's like same time as us.
Yeah, that's about when we started too.
So did that have anything to do with the crazy COVID nonsense forcing you to like shift what you were doing, or you planned on that beforehand?
So a little bit of that was because of the crazy shifts in the world, but also at that time I was going through a lot of shifts in my own life. I dropped out of college around the same time and just pursued this whole business thing. I was already doing my business and other things before that, but I was also going to school full time. And during that time, I decided to just drop out, start my podcast, move to San Diego, and just did the whole life change.
That's amazing already. I know it's going to go to some great places.
Good place to be too, San Diego.
Where did you move from?
I was in LA, so not too far, but I went to college in LA, and after I dropped out, I just didn't see a point of being there anymore.
Smart. I like it.
What were you studying? Where were you going to school for?
So I was going to school for cognitive science, and I was supposed to go into this corporate tech 9 to 5 job, which was not for me at all.
Yeah, that's interesting that you knew that before you got sucked into it. And you got like super depressed and had to quit that. It's better, I think, that you realized it ahead of time.
Yeah, after I got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I kind of just went into college picking some random major that people were saying was going to be good for jobs and was going to make a lot of money. And I just went into it, and afterwards I realized it wasn't for me, and I was suffering in college, not really doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah, most people stink. That's what they're talking about. How
Yeah.
did you get, I wanted to say, this is going to sound like a stupid question. I was going to say, how did you get into spirituality? But basically the question is like, you understand physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual like layers of the human experience, as we call it. I know you understand that. How did they come in? Did you start with physical fitness, or like, were you already like a spiritual being? How did all that take place?
Yeah, so I would say the physical part came in first because I had an eating disorder, and that happened after I lost my mom. So after I lost my mom, went into this whole phase of eating disorders, anxiety, depression, just all of it. And I started taking care of my physical body first because I didn't want to stay in that eating disorder and suffer that way. So that kind of came first for me, and it got into this whole thing of personal development, healing, and eventually I got to a point where I realized there is so much more to life than just the physical and mental and emotional. So that's when I started diving into the spiritual aspect, which opened up so much for me. And nowadays I feel like I see everything as almost like a spiritual experience, because like you mentioned, we are spiritual beings living this human temporary physical experience. So everything can be seen as that spiritual higher perspective experience.
Absolutely, that's well said. How? So first of all, for the audience, I would like everybody to realize she said "had" several times, meaning past tense,
Yeah.
because she's already healing and leaving that old Maggie behind. Not that there isn't daily healing and future work to be done on eating disorders and physical, mental, emotional stuff in general. But I love how you know how to use your words and you're putting that behind you. But I think your story is so good. Can we back up and do more of a the Maggie Dong story? Can we do the origin story? Because you mentioned about your mom passing, but I know just from talking to you a little bit that there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, so my mom passed away when I was 16, and she had breast cancer for 6 years. And before that, my dad had received a life sentence in prison when I was around 14, 13, 14. And, when my mom passed away, that's when everything kind of fell apart because I had no parents left at this point. I have a little brother. He's 5 years younger than me. So he was 11 back then when I was 16. And I ended up finding my brother a home and dealing with a bunch of stuff with my mom's estate and her lawyers and all of that. And I actually ended up getting emancipated. So I went to court, and they declared me an emancipated minor, which is when, if you're under 18, you can petition for that. So you can pretty much do adult things, quote unquote adult things. So I did that when I was 17. And that's kind of when my, I guess, adulthood really started, because everything got taken away and I was forced into that position.
Wow. How's your brother doing now?
He's doing pretty well. He is still staying in the Bay Area, which is where I was from, and he's staying with this other family.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
Oh my goodness. That's right. Okay, so this is there's going to be a lot of lessons for people to learn. So we both understand traumas and tragedies at a young age helps you grow up really quick. But at 20, you're ahead of your time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I did not expect that.
No, me neither. That's amazing. That's amazing. So then, even with that, at 16, you decided to go to college because other people said so or whatever. But you weren't working out at this point. You're still drinking and doing whatever else, a lot of self-harm stuff.
Yeah, so I went to college. I was in the middle of my eating disorder, and then I started drinking because, you know, I went to college and there were so many opportunities, and I said, why not just put myself in that position? So I did that for a while, and then I realized this one day, and this was a day that kind of was a wake-up call for me because I drove to get food this morning after I woke up. And as I was driving, I almost passed out from just drinking and starving myself because at the point I was starving myself, tracking my calories and macros and all that. And I was eating like less than 800 calories a day as an adult. So I almost starved myself to the point where I passed out at the wheel and I almost died. So that was the wake up call for me. And that day I realized I didn't want to do this anymore.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got into working out first and then eventually figured out nutrition, or how did that work?
Yeah, I just started going to the gym, you know, here and there. I was kind of active as a child. I did, you know, soccer for a while. I did track and stuff in high school, but didn't really stick to it because it wasn't my favorite. So I started going to the gym and lifting weights, and it became an obsession for a while. So I did take it really far. It went from one extreme to the other extreme where I was lifting all the time and using that as an escape mechanism. So, you know, I'm grateful that I got introduced to the gym and went through that experience. And now fitness and working out for me, it's more of just a lifestyle thing instead of this obsession.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know that feeling for sure of replacing one addiction with another.
Yeah, you go one side of the pendulum all the way to the other side.
But she figured it out so quickly.
Yeah, no, I did not. I didn't have mine like experience.
I'm like 15 years older than you, and it took me so many years of going too far one way and too far another way. That's amazing. What do you do as far as what people would call spiritual practices? Do you have journaling, yoga, meditation, psychedelic medicines, walks, grounding, nature, any like daily spiritual practices?
So the biggest thing when it comes to spiritual for me is just being present, because anything that we're fully present for, to me, that's a meditation. People think that we have to sit on the meditation mat to meditate for 3 hours a day to be spiritual. But it's actually anything can be made into a quote unquote spiritual experience if we're present for it. So I can be driving, and if I'm fully present, that's a spiritual experience for me. So it's a lot of just focusing on this present moment, carrying myself moment by moment instead of focusing on the past and getting stuck there over and over, or the future and wondering what's next, what's going to happen, and putting my focus into that, which is a waste of my energy in and of itself. It's just being present for everything, and that kind of gives me an ease when it comes to life instead of being stressed and anxious about everything.
I love that. That reminds me of they have like a Japanese tea ceremony, which is like a spiritual practice where they're present in every moment, how they measure it, and how they stir it, and there's no music, there's no anything, and you're just completely present with every little sip, every little stir, and then that drinking of the tea and experiencing it is just being in the present moment. How did you learn that? From books, internet, friends? Did you have a mentor at any point, or this? It feels to me like this is all self-taught because you feel like me at your age, or a little bit. I was actually older. I was still doing wild shit.
I feel like a lot of it was through books. I I did read a lot of books, especially in 2020 after I dropped out of college. All of a sudden, I had all this free time. So I was just reading and listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and it was a lot of growth for me for sure. And I kind of got introduced to spirituality, I guess, at the middle point of my business because I started my business back in college. And at the beginning, I was struggling to have my business take off. It was a whole thing where I didn't believe that it was going to happen. People were making fun of me in college starting this business. And at one point in my business, I got introduced to this concept of spirituality and manifestation. And that was kind of the first step into the spiritual world because I said, well, maybe there's another way to do this instead of working 15 hours a day and doing all of these business marketing things that I really wasn't interested in. Maybe there's another way to do it. So that's when I got introduced to those, and it opened up this door for this whole other world that I wasn't seeing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, when did you start to like? So when you kind of made that internal shift from like doing, and then more just kind of manifesting being. Like, what was like that initial spark where you're like, oh wow, this is real, like this is legit, and I'm starting to see it manifest in my experience. Was there like a specific moment that you remember?
So there was one moment where I remembered that I was trying to, sign on more clients in my old fitness coaching business, and it just wasn't working out. And I remember I went to the beach this one day to go for a walk. And at the beach, I started just bawling out of nowhere. I just started crying because I was like, my business is failing and I don't want to be in school and I just want to leave. And then it hit me that the core reason why I didn't believe that this was going to work out and I didn't sign on any clients, I didn't make any money was actually because I didn't really think I deserved it. And that was the thing that kind of shifted the narrative for me. I realized, growing up all my life, I lived in this scarcity mindset because my parents were always telling me, you need to save up money. You can't turn on the AC because it's wasting money. And I had this scarcity mindset growing up, and I was carrying on that with me, and I carried that into my life and my business. So I had that moment at the beach where I said, you know what, I'm going to start working on myself. Instead of looking at all of these marketing tactics, how do I sign more clients? How do I make more sales? Instead of learning all of these things, I'm actually going to look at myself and see what are the things within me that are blocking my own blessings, are blocking my own potential. So that was the moment that I had at the beach. And I kid you not, I went home, started journaling, just the words were flowing onto the page. And I got a lot of that unworthiness out at that point. Obviously, there was a lot more, but that was the initial step to it. So I did that night. And then the next day, I signed 2 clients. The very next day.
That's amazing. So first of all, the lesson for the audience as far as you think you're not good enough and you have all these excuses. Well, Maggie's already proven that she's been through more than most people. And then, bro, starts her own business before college. 20. Like, that's crazy. And that's the biggest thing that I got from that is instead of going to another seminar and reading another business book and looking for external things to like help or paying for this or paying for that, looking inside. And instead of doing more, releasing more blockages and stuff like that. And so your only physical practice then was journaling itself. And that was more just writing down why you are worthy and like great gratitude stuff. Like, how did you remove the blockages?
It took me diving into the past traumas and stories around that, because we all have some sort of childhood traumas that we're carrying on. And I find that just having self-love and compassion and all that, which is great, but that's not enough. I feel like a lot of people, when we have these doubts within ourselves, so for example, if I look in the mirror and I don't feel like I'm worthy, that I don't feel like I'm powerful, most people will give you the advice of just give yourself more love, just love yourself, just repeat these affirmations. And I've done all of that. But if we don't dive into the root cause of the problem and just kind of slap this self-love band-aid onto the problem, it's not going to be a long-term solution. It's a quick fix to say, well, I love myself, but you don't know why you didn't feel worthy to begin with. So it's actually diving into the root cause of these issues. And that's how we actually understand why we subconsciously block our own blessings.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. No, that's yeah, that's like a weird trap, like along the spiritual path of just like that blanketing yourself with like overly positivity versus, you can say getting to the root cause. I kind of like the metaphor of like the Hydra in like Greek mythology of just like you keep chopping off the heads, but they're going to keep coming back, until you get to that root of the issue.
Because when you get to the root, you realize that you have unconditional love for yourself, even despite all the things that have happened to you. Despite that, it doesn't matter that you're not perfect or whatever. It doesn't matter because you have unconditional love for yourself. So did you go into more what people would call shadow work and like thinking and journaling and meditating on and writing down specific things that happened to you and then shift that mindset from getting out of scarcity and being the victim into being grateful for your situation?
I would say journaling, I did that a lot. I don't do it as much anymore. I feel like what really actually changed the entire game for me was actually feeling all of the emotions, because we suppress our emotions so much. We think that crying is bad, being angry is bad, all of these things we think are bad, but these emotions teach us so much. And kind of the model that I go off of is like, if I come face to face with a problem, I will have an emotion. But after I experience that emotion fully, no matter what it is, happiness, sadness, anger, I experience that fully. And after I experience it, I come to a solution, because it's through that breakdown, it's in the midst of experiencing that emotion, so many things come up for me. And then after I experience it, I realize, well, first of all, it's not that big of a deal to experience this emotion, and this problem is not that big of a deal. So my model now is kind of problem, emotion, solution. So I come face to face with a problem, I feel it out, and then a solution comes up. And it's really that simple. I feel like we overcomplicate a lot of things.
Right, because you're always like, well, okay, what do I need to do? I need to drink more, eat less, do this, call this person. You're just sitting with it and letting time go by, essentially, and then the answer, the solution comes to you.
Yeah, I feel like people avoid their problems. They avoid their emotions. It's, well, I have a problem, but I'm going to do something else to make me feel better about it. It's like I'm going to find something to make me feel happy again because I'm scared of this quote unquote bad emotion. But the more we suppress these emotions, the more we suppress these things, the more they're going to build up, and eventually you're going to have to face it. And at that point, it's probably going to be this big thing that if you had just felt it out in the moment, it would have not been as bad.
Yeah, that's great, because I just read something today, or I saw like a Jordan Peterson quote. It said, "The conflict ignored is conflict multiplied." Right? So like avoiding it in the moment because it feels uncomfortable will just compound and compound to a breaking point where people are usually too far gone into their bad habits, addiction, negative experiences. They reach that boiling point. That was really well put. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times what you're worrying about is just what you're worrying about, and you're compounding it by suppressing it, like you said. There's not a real problem. Once you feel it, like you said, the solution comes to you. So that's amazing. What do you like to do for fun? Are you somebody that's enmeshed in their work as far as like your passion is your hobby, like us, where we don't have too many side things going on? Or do you have like a fun, silly thing that you like doing to get away from what you do for work?
You know, I used to work 15 hours a day trying to run my business, trying to quote unquote be successful and achieve a lot of things. And I realized I wasn't happy doing it. I was stressed out. I was constantly thinking about work and what's the next thing that I need to do. And nowadays, people ask me, so like, what do you actually do with your life? Because they would look at my social media and they're like, this girl posts a lot of memes. She's at the beach a lot. She's dancing and singing on her stories. And I actually don't work that much. It's probably like an hour or two a day. And then the rest of the day, I'm at the beach, I'm cooking, I'm at the gym, I'm doing whatever I want. But it's funny because ever since I stopped obsessing about my work, I've gotten so much more ideas and creativity because I'm doing these things that actually I enjoy. And then when I'm at the beach, sometimes I get hit with this crazy idea that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to put this into action. But then at that point, it's not forced, it just flows. And I finish whatever it is in a short amount of time instead of just sitting in front of my computer and waiting for these ideas to come to me and forcing things to work. That's a very difficult way, I feel like, to do business and life, and I've done it for a long time.
Wow. So if you want to talk about synchronicities in the universe working out, we're going to have to pay you for this as a business call, because that's what him and I were just racking our brains about for the past couple of weeks and the past couple of days, and then talking for an hour or two before we had you on about how we can trust and surrender and do less and give up that pressure of thinking we always need to do more to be more successful and to achieve and to conquer and do all these things. And that was just so perfectly said. Like,
exactly,
go to the beach, what we needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because that's what we were trying to come up with. But even coming up with what you said, we were still forcing that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what do we need to do less or whatever? And you were just like, nope, I go to the beach and then I get out of my own way and the idea comes to me.
But there's like a lot of trust there too, right? Because I know like I've gotten in that trap where like I got to get the next thing done. I'm trying to be overly organized and planned and do all the right things. And that pressure just ends up stifling my creativity and actually hinders me from, getting that inspiration. And whereas if I would just be at the beach chilling out, I might get in that more open space.
Yeah, I feel like the old way of doing business, like that's what I call it, the old way of doing business.
Right.
It's like forcing things to work, and we have to work X amount of hours for X amount of money and clients. And in reality, this reality, everything is energy, right? And the energetics behind it, that's kind of what I study, and that's kind of what I dive into. Because everything is energy, when we're in the energy of trusting and surrendering, that puts us in a higher vibration. And that higher vibration draws in more higher vibrational things, because we're in that state of receiving, and whatever you embody, that's what you're attracting, right? And this took me a long time for my brain to get around it, but the energetics behind it, it's like the more you force things to work, the more we chase after money, because I've done it for a long time. I was chasing after things. When you're in the energy of chasing that thing, you're also pushing it away. It's running away from you because you're chasing it. But when you pull back, when you're in that state of being still, receiving, things come to you because you're not pushing it away by chasing.
We're gonna pay her for this.
Bro, that was exactly what we needed to hear. That because it made so much sense too when you think of it on a vibrational energy. Because I kept saying, I can't let go and I can't trust because I know that I need to work harder and harder and harder. But if you, that may even kind of sound true to an ego if you wrote it on paper. But from a vibrational standpoint, it doesn't make any sense at all because then you're in lack and scarcity and it's forced. Instead of like what you said, that's how you raise your vibration, is trust and chill.
Yeah, and because we've used that like grinding mentality before to like get our success, it's kind of like ingrained as like a, for me, it feels like a default pattern. Like when I get stressed, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna work harder and do more and do more, and that's gonna change, right? Instead of like, what my good friend says, instead of like grinding, flowing. That difference between forcing and just allowing.
Damn.
Yeah.
And she has the nerve, the unmitigated gall, the fucking nerve to be like, it took me so long to figure this out.
20 years old. Took her a long
Fuck,
time.
I got fucking CDs holding it. And she says it took a long time. That was so brilliant. That was so. I really hope the audience gets as much out of that as I probably did.
No,
That was genius.
That's perfect.
It took me a long time to figure it out. She's gonna be a fucking billionaire in like 10 years. I'm not even fucking around. And who even knows? Okay, here's a good question. Do you set long-term or mid-term dreams, aspirations, goals, and intentions? Like, do you have hard goals set, written down, and intentions, and then surrender to that? Or you're just going with the flow completely?
So it's really interesting because instead of having goals and dreams now, because I used to have this 5-year plan, 10-year plan, but time is an illusion. Instead of having 5-year plans, 10-year plans, now I decide that I already have it. And the moment I decide that it's already mine, that there's nothing to stress about because I already have it, it comes to me. So it's like, I think I did like a podcast episode on this a while back about the 3D versus 5D ways of doing things and running businesses. It's like the 3D way is if I work X amount of hours, I make X amount of money. And there are steps that you take to get from point A to point B. And on, a higher vibrational level, the way that we do things is we decide that we already hop from point A to point B, we're already there. And then it's kind of working backwards, because when you decide that you're already there and you truly believe it, it's not like, oh, I decide that I already have this and then I'm still stressing out about it. You truly believe that you already have it, and then I sit back and I wait for the steps to be shown to me to how to actually get there. But I believe that I'm already there. So there's nothing for me to stress about. I'm not sitting here like, what's the next step? How do I make more money? I'm already here. And then I'm chilling at the beach, doing whatever I want. And then the things come to me about this is what I do. And, without even having to dig for these action steps.
You mean like opportunities and ideas and creativity is what comes to you?
Yeah, it's almost like when you're in alignment, when you're embodying that version of you who already has the thing that you want, these opportunities and things you're attracting in, instead of trying to strive and reach for these things come to you. And I guess an example that I can give, it's when I used to be out of alignment, when I used to dig for these things, it took me just like so long to even make anything work, because I would reach out to a client and something wouldn't work out. I would try to make a sale, something wouldn't work out. And it's almost like I was just, the universe was saying, this is not the right path to go down. This is redirection, do something else. And I ended up changing up my entire business. Even though it was scary, I changed up the whole thing. And then I stopped worrying about these clients and the money and whatever. And ironically, they started coming to me. Like nowadays, I don't advertise my services that often, honestly. I'm just having fun. And people are asking me, people are like, so how do I work with you?
Yeah, because they can feel that energy. That's goddamn brilliant. She's fucking brilliant, dude. Which makes us brilliant for having her on the show. That always comes back to me. When you were really having eating disorders and when times were tough, was your thing anxiety where you were stuck in the afraid of the future was going to happen, or were you in depression where you were stuck in the past of all the bad things that happened to you, or a little bit of both maybe?
A little bit of both. I would say depression really comes from getting stuck in the past and wishing things were different. And anxiety is more future based, like trying to figure out how do I get this future that I wanted. And, you know, I feel like we limit ourselves that way too, right? Because I was having all these plans for myself, and in my plan, nowhere did it say I was dropping out of college. Nowhere did it say I was starting a business. It just didn't happen according to my original plan, and I'm grateful for that. So that's why I kind of stopped making plans too. It's like, what if there's something better that I'm not even seeing?
Yeah, yeah, being open to possibility rather than having like tunnel vision on what you think is supposed to happen. Right? That's where we all get caught.
Really?
I get caught.
So if you get into a slump or a lull, or you're feeling shitty now, or negative thoughts creep in, what do you do to break out of that now?
I don't intentionally break out of it. I live through it fully. I experience it fully. If it's a negative thought, negative emotion, I stop labeling it negative. I just experience the whole thing, because life, it's like waves. It's meant to be enjoyed, and it's meant to be lived through with the ups and downs. I feel like people focus a lot on how do I stay in this constant state of peace and gratitude and positivity, but we're here to experience all of it,
Oh, yeah.
the entire spectrum. So why not just have fun with it? Why limit ourselves to this one tiny piece
That's fucking.
of the experience?
I like bringing back to what you said, like the very beginning, where you think like presence, really, like if you can't be present for the negative experiences, then how can you really be present for the really high highs? You have to kind of accept it all and be present with it all. That's yeah. So again, nail it on the head.
And I like, yeah, she's I think brilliant. So also, I like how you don't label it negative, because then you're making it a thing. You're giving it energy at that point. You're being like, all right, I'm here in this negative thing. You're just experiencing it and staying present. That's amazing.
Yeah, people talk about, especially in the spiritual community, people talk about love and unconditional love all the time. People are like, well, we want to love everybody and everything unconditionally. You're not loving unconditionally if you're neglecting the negative experiences. People want
Putting a
to.
condition on it that you only love it when it's cool for you.
Things are good.
For real.
Exactly.
What do you do for nutrition? Are you a meal prep person? Because you seem like you're just going. Because like, how did you snap out of? How do you go from obsessive eating disorder to now looking great, feeling great? Are you more intuitively eating now, or do you prep ahead of time, or what do you do now for nutrition?
So nowadays, I still loosely like track my macros sometimes. I don't use the app anymore because I kind of just eyeball it now, but I do keep track of certain things that I'd like to have, like protein in my diet. I like to have enough of that. And, otherwise, I just kind of eat whatever I want to eat. And I tend to be pretty healthy because at this point I don't really crave the unhealthy stuff anymore. I used to eat a lot of that. Even in my eating disorders, I would crave that stuff, but nowadays it just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah. because at this point you've changed your mindset and your gut microbiome and everything to crave healthier foods. But I like that. So just not obsessive anymore. Take us through a week of your workout schedules. Your weights, cardio, yoga, dance stuff, weird stuff. What are we doing?
It's mostly weights. I go probably 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week at the gym. And other than that, I go on walks every day. I make sure I get my sun and steps in, drink water, all of that. But nothing crazy. I don't really do cardio at the gym, like running, treadmill. I don't do that. I dance at home just when I want to dance. But yeah, I really just stick to weights, and other things is kind of whatever I feel like doing.
Perfect answer. Once again, what do you like for music? Like, do you have a separate gym style of music versus at home versus certain moods versus going out?
Versus dance.
I I listen to a lot of different things. At the gym, I listen to EDM a lot. That's kind of what hypes me up for the gym. And then otherwise, I will listen to like R&B, classical. I play classical music on the piano and guitar. That's what I do.
Oh,
Oh wow. And do you, so like speaking of music and sound, do you ever play around with like binaural beats or any kind of like sound healing, or have you ever dabbled in any of that before?
Yeah, so I mean the piano stuff that I do, a lot of the times it is healing, and I've posted on my story like a couple times for the healing purposes. Sometimes I'm just having fun with the music, other times is for healing.
I love it. What going back to your workout split? So say it's 4 or 5 days a week. Is it you're doing different body parts? How do you split it up?
Yeah, I usually do upper lower. That's my split. I'll do upper lower rest, upper lower rest.
How is she 20 years old?
Just figure this all out.
Well, because so now you can see like the what's the word, like proportional amount of adversity is how quick you can level up. You know what I'm saying? Like she's paid up front
Yeah,
for how awesome she is, and that just shows that everybody else thinks they have excuses and they complain about different things, and then you're just staying in that complaint mindset instead of a gratitude mindset.
I feel like, you know, I've done this more than once. Like I know I've dived into my past lives. I've done this probably way too many times.
Yeah,
So
I, yeah.
I've been here before.
Yep, good. And once you recognize that, you see those adversities that you went through as just a little dot instead of your whole life. Oh my God, everything sucks. It's like, nah, I've been through this before. And then you realize you're here for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that adversity was there for a reason too, and everything worked out perfectly. Because you'd be just another hot, boring 20-year-old chick if you didn't go through all that. You wouldn't be a business owner and inspiring so many people and doing so many things. Like you needed that too.
You. Thank you. I feel like the adversities that we go through, like you said, it's all for a reason. It all serves purpose. And maybe in the middle of it, we think the world is ending and we're never going to get out of it. But in hindsight, we always realize that we're so grateful that things happened exactly the way that they happened.
You got anything coming up as far as travel, business, ideas, or you're just going with the flow? Like anything big scheduled?
Nothing's scheduled yet, but I've been really wanting to travel. I haven't in a long time, and I want to get to different places and just experience.
Yeah, I feel that's what's coming through to me. Is that's what's next for you is some type of like travel. You're too important to stay in one spot.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised that she didn't even like mention like travel as being like one of her favorite things. That's just what's coming through for me.
Yeah.
But that'll happen. Still young. What do you have any other questions, or we could wrap it up at any time? This is mind blowing, and I think we'll definitely collaborate again in the future for sure.
Yeah, very old soul, perhaps. Maybe
100%.
might put it.
100%. Because I already knew from immediately could feel that we were on the same page, just from talking over Instagram, just briefly, not even in depth. But this conversation has just blown my mind, and I can't thank you enough as far as the advice that I'm soaking up, and I'm sure you are as well. And then the inspiration from our audience to hear it from other people that have gone through stuff. Because a lot of times we tell not even as much of our personal story, but so many times people are like, oh, it's easy for you guys to work out and do this and that and to have a business or whatever, but they don't know what we've been through. When they hear your story at your age and all these things going on and how much you're giving back to the world, that's going to inspire and help a lot of people. Because I know you know that, but that's the next step in your healing journey is giving back. And the more you can help other people, that's going to continue to heal and help and grow yourself.
100%. And yeah, thank you so much.
Shout out all your stuff. I know you're not looking for clients or whatever, but give all your, at least your Instagram, which obviously I'll link and stuff.
Podcast.
But yeah, talk about your podcast and if you want your personal business.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Mind Muscle Enlightenment. This is where we talk about all things physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual fitness. And my Instagram is just my name at Maggie Dong _. And I have a link tree on my Instagram where you can find all of my links. And I do want to leave the audience with this one thing that's kind of coming through. So I know that right now in the world, we have so many things going on, so many changes throughout this, the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of changes happening. And even through these adversities, I kind of just want people to remember that you're only ever going to be given exactly what you can handle, nothing more and nothing less. It's always the right amount. And the amount of pain that you experience on the other side of it, that's also your capacity for pleasure. So as you experience the pain, you're expanding your capacity to experience the other side of life.
Maggie, you're amazing.
That's beautiful.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely talk soon, and I look forward to collaborating again, or if you ever need anything, let us know for sure.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thanks. We'll see you later, guys. Peace.